It might be strange to see, but this was the only Pixel that had one camera on the back with the two on the front. It was also the only Pixel with two cameras on the front, unless the fold counts. With this strangeness is this, the Pixel 3 XL, and it's still actually pretty good. On paper, the specs were flagship but also hold up today for a few reasons. The Snapdragon 845 processor is not great, especially battling with budget phones of today, but still feels great. It's not the slowest phone that I have, which is kind of a sad brag, but also a good thing for usability. That said, being stuck on Android 12 isn't the best in the world, but having used the Pixel 3 on Android 15, I noticed two things. One, this handles Android 15 well, but also I can't really find any major differences. This is paired with 4GB of RAM and 64 or 128GB of UFS 2.1 storage, which the latter, just like the Pixel 4, is the worst part of this phone. With gaming, it's debatable as to how well you consider it, but normal usage is still solid. Slow compared to flagships, but not Samsung A15 5G brutally slow. This is a 4G phone, so consider that, and honestly I recommend using it on T-Mobile since in the US, Verizon was never really great on Pixel phones in general. We get Bluetooth 5, Wi-Fi 5, and eSIM support, which is nothing impressive, but also makes sense for an 8-year-old phone. It shouldn't be surprising, but this phone is very similar to the Pixel 2 series, but gets some nice upgrades. The phone has a metal frame similar to the iPhone 4, and on the top has a hole for the microphone just like the iPhone 4. Then the left side has nothing, while the right side has the power and volume buttons. No textured or special colors here sadly, but that's because I have the black phone. On other colors they have different colors. On the bottom we have a SIM tray, not like an iPhone, and then a USB-C 3.1 port which allows for 18 watts of wired charging. On the back, we have the iPhone 17 Pro back, which is definitely what Apple copied. I mean, just look at it. This has a barely raised camera ring, but everything else is glass, with the lower portion having this weird soft touch while the rest is glossy, and there's a dual flash unit with a flicker sensor, which doesn't seem to do much when I test it. There's also this weird circle called a fingerprint scanner, which works great. Inside all of this, we have something that I honestly wish every phone had, which is Active Edge. So you can actually squeeze to trigger Assistant or Gemini, and this was such a great feature with the Pixel 4 ending this, and I might as well mention they killed the Soli radar after the Pixel 4 as well. On the front, we have the weird bathtub notch, so no hole punch here. But this is a slightly curved 6.3-inch flat-ish 1440p flexible OLED panel, which, no surprise, runs at 60 Hz and hits about 400 nits of brightness, which is fine, but not the greatest. This, just like the back, is covered by Gorilla Glass 5, which isn't a big deal when the OLED is the most expensive part to replace. There's a decent chin on the bottom, but that's because there's a microphone and a loudspeaker here, which pairs to the one on the top, and both honestly sound pretty great, even now. There's also two front cameras, which is strange, but what's even more strange is that one of these is an ultra-wide camera, while the other is a focusable sensor. Both not too crazy, as this was during the second year of Samsung doing the latter, but this was the only Pixel with a focusable camera until the Pixel 8 5 years later. As for the image, the notch is weird for sure, but the image still looks pretty great even today. It is a tall phone, being 6.22 inches tall, but at 184 grams of weight, it actually makes the phone feel a little bit light, though it is technically a heavy phone. As for battery life, it's extremely debatable. The Pixel 3 and 4 seem to be the phones where the batteries start to expand over time, so in cases like my Pixel 3, I had to replace the battery, but this one estimates around 75% battery health, and, well, it definitely shows. This 3430 mAh cell is neither great nor bad, feeling average in performance. All-day battery life should be easy to do even with this old battery, but at the same time, this battery should be replaced given the age and, like I said, bloat capability that plagues phones like this, the Samsung S22, and the iPhone 13. Don't ever think that no company is immune to expanding batteries. We do get wireless charging as well, but that and 18 watts of wired charging are just slow by today's standards, even though the battery size is only 13.2 watt hours. Similar to the Pixel 5, I have nostalgia goggles when thinking of this camera. I'll show you some shots that I took back in 2018 when I bought the phone originally. Clearly, this is not the exact same phone, because I ended up returning that one. I do remember trying to figure out the auto FPS setting for video on this phone, and I know Apple copied this, which no one should leave that feature on unless you want terrible low light video. Anyways, it's 2026, and here are the cameras. Dual 8 megapixel front camera, one being the ultra wide at 19 millimeters, while the other is a focusable camera at 28 millimeters, which the latter is a similar idea to the back camera. Regardless of the camera, we get 1080p 30 frames per second, which isn't too surprising. Also, it wouldn't be until the Pixel 9 Pro where we saw an under 20mm front camera, meaning this offered a wide camera for quite a while. Quality overall is good, but it does feel a little bit soft to me. Great on the phone, but in video it looks contrasty and soft and kind of carries to the rear cameras. Sorry, there's only one camera on the back, which is the 12.2 megapixel main camera that is optically stabilized and can shoot video at 4K 30 frames per second, just like the Pixel 1 through the Pixel 4 series, minus the 4A 5G. So weird. Anyways, I'll let you look at some shots. Now, I will say that video isn't the best, but it's still usable for its age, but the Pixel video doesn't really get good until the Pixel 7 Pro, honestly. As for images, similar to the Pixel 2, amazing, but also kind of soft and contrasty. Now this falls into the bad but good category because there's some old aspects of this phone that make it still a good buy, but also something that you shouldn't buy. For one, pricing is debatably high. I got this one for something like $30, but I got lucky on that and know how to swap the boards on this one. I got it in this condition for $3, but I had another phone with a bad board that I swapped into that. Either way, for $100 plus, it's a tough sell. On one hand, if you can get one that has an unlockable bootloader, it'll allow you to have different operating systems like Lineage OS, but it doesn't just magically give us 120 Hz or fix the issues of having an 8-year-old processor. Still, it's pretty solid. Even with Android 15 via Lineage OS on my Pixel 3 with an unlocked bootloader, the phone runs great with little to no problems. Not sure what Android 15 adds besides slightly different visuals, but it's still nice to have if you have that option. But if you get, I don't know, a Verizon one or a locked one, Android 12 isn't the end of the world, but it does make the phone feel dated, which it definitely is. Now, the interesting thing about this that I completely forgot about is you see how the screen is dim like this? Well, this is an Android 12 bug, I believe. And as you can see, it's supposed to be on the always on display, but it's not. And when I double tap, you can see the lock screen. This apparently was an Android 12 bug because I remember this happening before on the Pixel 4 XL, but also on the Pixel 3 that I have that's on Android 15, it doesn't have this issue. It's very strange that Google never fixed this, and then they just stopped supporting the phone. Anyways, I forgot to throw that into the video, and I thought that this was a good time to do it. I don't think Google should support Android 15 or 16 on this phone, but it does make you feel like you're using a super old phone with Android 12, even though there's not really much different from Android 14 to 16. And some Android 16 or 15 devices introduce features like stolen device protections, which are actually on Android 12 devices and newer, this one being the former. What I will say is for a 60 Hz device with a processor that is on par with the iPhone 8, I will say that I really did enjoy not only the phone experience, but the form factor. It's a sleek, wider phone that didn't feel massive because the weight and sizing isn't massive. Somehow this XL phone feels just right in all ways. Now, I want to add this section because I don't use AI or LLMs or anything adjacent to that. I just make my reviews based on my opinion and factual specs. But I threw the script into Gemini, which sounds biased given that this phone and Gemini are both Google, but it gave me some interesting points. It reminded me of the storage saver, which is the fact that when you're backing up your photos in Google Photos app, having the photos and videos in storage saver will allow you for unlimited storage, which can be nice given that the photos are under 16 megapixels from all the cameras. But do note that it is only 1080p video, compressing any 4K video to 1080p if needed. It also reminded me that the flicker sensor is used to combat the flickering that you see in videos when filming indoor lights. I'm personally just saying I never really noticed a difference. It also brought up the auto FPS again, which I always turn off because we are professionals here and jumping from 24 to 30 frames per second is annoying because the phone thinks that it's low light and will just give you worse video, which already looks bad to begin with. It also makes fun of the bathtub notch, which is funny because I and many feel that it was never really needed, and Gemini makes fun of it, saying that it's so big that it needs its own zip code. It also brings up 4 gigabytes of RAM and how RAM management was strict at launch and people complained about that, but ironically, I think that was an issue in the past, but I didn't experience that nowadays. I was never inconvenienced if there were any apps that were closing on their own, because if they did, the phone launched the new app quick enough. Background videos and music never closed on me. It also tried to clarify some of my typos and grammar, and shut up, bot. Now, should you buy this phone? Probably not. Over $100 is what these can be bought for, and under $200 will get you some used Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 phones, which is where you should be looking for a phone nowadays. For under $200, you can still get a Pixel 7, and for a little over that, the Pixel 8, but with the same size screen and no bathtub notch. But if you enjoy the notch, or the stress-free nature of having a single camera, or just an arguably better design, it's nice to see that the Pixel 3 and 3 XL hold up just barely. And that's my review of the Pixel 3 XL, the bigger version of another good phone that's old. But what do you think? Let me know, and as always, thanks for joining the 1%, and thanks for watching.